Hello, my name is Dr. Steele, and welcome to Steele Mathematics, where lessons in Algebra 1, Geometry, Algebra 2, Pre-Calculus, and Calculus are taught. And today, we're going to talk about congruent triangles. Now, when we talk about congruent line segments and congruent angles, we're talking about something that has the same measure. Well, congruent figures, are pretty similar. And I'm going to tell you two definitions of congruent figures. First, I want to give you the informal definition. Two figures are congruent if and only if they are identical. Now, in the bottom, you see what is called a congruence statement. And when you write a congruent statement, the names of the corresponding vertices are in the same order. Now, what do I mean by corresponding? Well, point A to triangle ABC is what point D is to triangle DEF. Point B to triangle ABC is what point E is to triangle DEF. Point C to triangle ABC is what point F is to triangle DEF. The corresponding vertices are written in the same order. Now, I mentioned that these two triangles are identical. And when you think of identical twins, you're thinking that their corresponding body parts are the same. So when we're looking at two identical triangles, segment AB is congruent to segment DE, segment AC is congruent to segment DF, segment BC is congruent to segment EF, so the corresponding sides are congruent. But then, so are the corresponding angles. So angle A is congruent to angle D, angle B is congruent to angle E, and angle C is congruent to angle F. So now it actually leads to the formal definition of congruent. Two figures are congruent if and only if all pairs of corresponding parts are congruent. So if you got these two congruent triangles, all the corresponding parts are congruent. Therefore, corresponding parts of congruent triangles are congruent, or CPCTC. So if you know that two triangles are congruent, we know that the corresponding sides are congruent and the corresponding angles are congruent. So now, suppose that you want to prove that two triangles are congruent. That means you have to show that all pairs of corresponding sides are congruent and all pairs of corresponding angles are congruent. But let's look at this. Suppose that the corresponding sides are congruent. Nothing's mentioned about the angles. Can we conclude that these two triangles are congruent? The answer is yes. And they would be congruent by side, side, side. If all pairs of corresponding sides are congruent, then the triangles are congruent. But let's suppose that two pairs of corresponding sides are congruent and a pair of corresponding angles that are between the two sides are congruent. Can we conclude that the two triangles are congruent? Well, the answer is yes. They would be congruent by side, angle, side. If two pairs of corresponding sides are congruent, and a pair of corresponding angles between the sides are congruent, then the triangles are congruent. Now, we have two pairs of corresponding angles being congruent, and a pair of corresponding sides between the angles are congruent. Then the triangles would be congruent by angle, side, angle. If two pairs of corresponding angles are congruent, and a pair of corresponding sides between the angles are congruent, then the triangles are congruent. Now suppose that the corresponding sides are not between the two angles. Can we conclude that the triangles are congruent? The answer is yes. They will be congruent by angle, angle, side. If two pairs of corresponding angles are congruent, and a pair of corresponding sides not between the angles are congruent, then the triangles are congruent. So now we have two right triangles. The corresponding hypotenuses are congruent, and a pair of corresponding legs are congruent. Then they would be congruent by hypotenuse leg. If the hypotenuses of two right triangles are congruent and a pair of corresponding legs are congruent, then the triangles are congruent. So now, triangles can be congruent by side, 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 angle, side, angle, side, angle, 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 side, or hypotenuse leg. They cannot be congruent by side, side, angle. There is no such thing. There's no such thing as side, angle, angle. And there is no such thing as angle, side, side. So now, let's look at some examples. State whether each pair of triangles are congruent. If so, state whether the triangles are congruent by side, 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 angle, side, angle, side, angle, 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 side, or hypotenuse leg. Well, if you look at number 1, we know that these two angles are congruent. These two angles are congruent. And a pair of corresponding sides between the two angles are congruent. Therefore, the triangles are congruent, and they are congruent by angle, side, angle. All right, number 2. We know these two sides are congruent. These two sides are congruent. And these two sides are congruent. So yes, the two triangles are congruent, and they will be congruent by side, side, side. All right, if you look at number 3, well, we know that these two angles are congruent because they're vertical angles. However, these two sides are not congruent, and these two sides are not congruent. Therefore, the triangles are not congruent. All right, if you look at number 4, these two angles are congruent. These two angles are congruent. And as you can see, they share a side. A line segment can be congruent to itself. So therefore, the two triangles are congruent, and they are congruent by angle, angle, side. All right, if you look at number 5, we have two right triangles. And we know that the two hypotenuses are congruent. And as you can see, they share a leg. So the two triangles are congruent, and they will be congruent by hypotenuse leg. All right, number 6. Well, we know that these two sides are congruent. However, these two angles are not congruent, and these two angles are not congruent. Therefore, the two triangles are not congruent. So as you can see, you just have to look at their sides and you look at their angles. See what's congruent. And once you see what's congruent, you can determine if the triangles are congruent. And if they are, by side, 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 angle, side, angle, side, angle, 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 side, or HL. Now, suppose that triangle FLH is congruent to triangle WCT. You have to find the following. A. Well, we know that since the two triangles are congruent, segment FH and segment TW are congruent. Therefore, 5A minus 3 equal 3A plus 5. So now we solve the equation. Subtract 3A from both sides, and you'll have 2A minus 3 equal 5. We're going to add 3 to both sides, and you'll have 2A equal 8. Divide both sides by 2, and you'll have A equal 4. Therefore, the solution is 4. Next, we're looking for B. An angle H and angle T are congruent. Therefore, 4B plus 13 equal 6B minus 5. We subtract 4B from both sides, and you'll have 13 equal 2B minus 5. Add 5 to both sides, and you'll have 18 equal 2B. Divide both sides by 2, and you will have 9 equal B. Therefore, 9 is the solution. All right, we have X, and angle L and angle C are congruent. And that's one thing about this congruent statement up here. Remember that the names of the corresponding vertices are written in the same order. Therefore, you would know which angles are congruent and which sides are congruent. So we know that angle L and angle C are congruent. Therefore, 5x equal 3x plus 26. Subtract 3x from both sides, and you will get 2x equal 26. We divide both sides by 2, and x equal 13. So the solution is 13. And finally, we got number 4. We're looking for y. And we know segment FL and segment CW are congruent. Therefore, y plus 4 equal 9. Subtract 4 from both sides, and you will get y equal 5. Therefore, the solution is 5. So what we talked about today are proving triangles congruent and using congruent triangles to solve problems. When you show that two triangles are congruent, you can show that they are congruent by side, 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 angle, side, angle, side, angle, 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 side, or hypotenuse, leg. Also, you can use CPC-TC to solve problems. I hope that you have a wonderful and blessed day.